Developing news coming out in the last 24 hours from the White House of a chilling warning of sleeper cell attacks, as we're hearing they're increasing their monitoring on these various groups in the United States that could initiate these attacks here very soon. In the next 2 weeks, we're hearing if the United States gets involved in the conflict in the Middle East, as Iran is warning the United States they will strike back if the U.S. is to get involved and attack Iran. In fact, let's take a look at some video footage that's come out in the last 24 hours so you can hear it for yourself. I'm also going to share with you the articles that have just come out today, and also I'm going to read for you the entire list of the warnings to cities in the U.S. that has come out from the FBI. Let's take a look.
The other thing, if we get involved, Maria, what I'm worried about is Iran's operatives in the U.S. will strike. Remember, September 11, 2023, President Biden has that deal with Iran. He gives clemency to 5 Iranian operatives, and he lets 3 of them remain in the U.S. at a time when we knew that Iran was trying to kill former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and one other senior State Department official. That was just, I can't, it's indescribable what President Biden tried to do. You know, and these operatives, they can strike us, our infrastructure, all sorts of things. We now learned afterwards that they're trying to kill President Trump. So we have to be worried about the homeland, because if the Iranian operatives strike, maybe the Chinese will go in with them, and China can do a lot of damage, not only to our civilian infrastructure, but to our military bases as well.
So you think we need to understand and remember that you've got Iranian operatives in the United States right now?
Yes, along with Chinese operatives and probably Russian ones as well.
Well, I mean, thanks to the wide open border, you had 150,000 Chinese nationals come into the country.
Yeah, and I think Borders Our Homeland should concentrate all of his resources on breaking up those Iranian and those Chinese networks. You know, they can let others go for the meantime, but we need critically, this is the most urgent task of the federal government, is to break up these Chinese and Iranian operatives in the U.S. because their networks are extremely dangerous.
That is huge.
President Trump's national security memo said, quote, Iran has also directed its proxy groups, including Hezbollah, Islamic Jihad, to embed sleeper cells in the homeland to be activated in support of this terror activity. So just to reiterate, experts we spoke to said that should the U.S. join these attacks on Iran, they may try to activate these sleeper cells. Kelly.
Yeah.
There you have it, you guys. Man, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's take a look at some of these articles that have been coming out so you can see it for yourself. This one coming out today. White House is currently monitoring possible Iranian sleeper cells in the United States. Here's another one that came out. Trump administration boosts monitoring of possible Iran-backed cells in the U.S. as Trump weighs strikes. Sources say. This one coming out yesterday, June 19th. And here's another one that came out the day before. Highly vulnerable Iranian supreme leader may try to activate sleeper cells in the West as Israeli onslaught mounts, experts warn. So we're hearing that they could be initiating these attacks. Now, in addition to that, World War III warnings coming out surrounding all of this, as well as, take a look at this, just coming out a couple of hours ago today, June 20th, 2025. Putin says that he is worried when asked if he is concerned that the world is going to be heading towards World War III. We're hearing that today a new World War III warning has been issued about the direction that we are going with all the conflicts around the world. Now, let me know your thoughts. Are you concerned that we're going to be heading towards World War III? Are you concerned about sleeper cells in the United States attacking if the U.S. gets involved in the conflict in the Middle East? If you are, drop a 3 in the comments for World War III. If you are not, and you don't think that we're going to be going that direction, World War III is not around the corner, and these global conflicts are going to de-escalate, drop a 4 in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. But I'm going to dive into the latest video footage, the articles, everything that's been unfolding today, June 20th, 2025, so that way you can see it for yourself and know and rest assured what is the latest information that is taking place right now. As we're hearing these warnings are being issued, the White House is now monitoring these sleeper cells just coming out in the last 24 hours. They're concerned about potential attacks here on U.S. soil, and they're saying that this could lead us into World War III. And I am seeing 3s pouring into the comments right now. Now, do me a favor, before we dive into the details, if you appreciate the updates, take a second, hit that thumbs up like button for me. When you do that, it helps out the channel while we're live. Spread this out further across the YouTube platform so more people can get the latest updates. Now, to stay up to date, it's totally free. Why not? All you got to do is hit that subscribe button. I see that over half of the people that watch the channel are not subscribed. You might as well just subscribe. I'll keep you up to speed on everything. It's totally free, and I cite all the sources. I'm going to go through these articles. You're going to see the dates, the sources. I'm going to put it on the screen, read right from it, hyperlink it in the description so that way you can see it, click it, go read it for yourself, try to hold myself to the highest level of accountability here on the channel. And also, like I said, I'm going to be reading through the list of cities again that we had from the FBI that came out where they said they know there are sleeper cells. I'm going to go through the list so that way you can hear it again and know exactly where it is that they are warning to be on alert with everything that is going on. So like I said, we're going to dive right in. I'm going to get you caught up on everything. Now, in addition to that, wanted to mention to you that if you're approaching retirement or you're already there and you're worried about the rising costs that are taking place, you're not alone. Recent surveys show that 92% of people are impacted and are concerned about their savings with everything that's going on. And now with the tensions escalating around the world, there's possibility of World War III, and people are concerned about inflation, about their incomes, what's going to be happening to the economy. And listen, if you're concerned about what to do with your money, I recommend you reach out to my friends at Lear Capital. Lear Capital right now, you can see them on the screen. You can reach out to them. It is totally free to call them, 1-800-411-2430, or go to learram.com. They'll be able to help you out. Totally free information available to you. No obligation. They're not going to steer you in any particular direction. Free education, free information, no pressure to walk you through investing. If you want to get more information about gold or silver, they are available to you. So don't wait. Call them today, 1-800-411-2430, or go to learram.com. They have wealth protection guides to help you and your family. Thank you to Lear Capital making that available today. Highly recommend them. Great people. I actually had one person say that they helped them out tremendously. So consider giving them a call if you are interested in trying to figure out what to do here. Now, let's cover the list. I'm going to go through the list right now before we dive into the footage so that way you can know what are the cities that we received warnings on. And if you are glad that Donald Trump is monitoring these right now, drop a 47 in the comments for support for the Trump administration, for the warnings coming out from the White House, for the handling of what is going on in the Middle East. Now, like I said, I'm going to keep you guys up to date on everything so that way you know exactly what is taking place here, because we are yet to see if the United States is going to attack Iran. Now, we had heard that Donald Trump gave the approval, and that approval is on pause, though. There's no final word or decision. He said over the course of the next 2 weeks, he's going to decide whether or not to say yes or no. And Iran is saying if that happens, U.S. military assets in the Middle East will be hit. And also, there's the possibility, the warnings are coming out, of these sleeper cells being initiated. Now, I'm going to go through the list, and as I go through, if I read your city, put yes. If I don't read your city, put no. I'm curious to see how many people on the channel right now actually are in these cities. So, FBI sleeper cell warning list coming out, this back in 2023. The first one is Washington, D.C. They know there are sleeper cells in Washington, D.C., all throughout New York. There's so many in New York. There's no specific locations, just the entire state of New York has sleeper cells. San Francisco, California, Santa Clara, California, Los Angeles, California, San Diego, California, Houston, Texas, Arlington, Texas, Dallas, Texas, Boca Raton, Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Orlando, Florida, Tampa, Florida, Boston, Massachusetts, Playfield, Illinois, Chicago, Illinois, Cleveland, Ohio, Laurel, Maryland, Potomac, Maryland, Harridan, Virginia, Springfield, Virginia, Raleigh, North Carolina, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Charlotte, North Carolina, Detroit, Michigan, Columbia, Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri, Denver, Colorado, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, Tucson, Arizona, and Seattle, Washington. These are all cities that have been confirmed by the FBI to have sleeper cells that they are monitoring at this time. They believe they, as you heard, likely from Iran or China, other nations that want to cause harm to the United States. The open border policies have allowed them to come in over the past several years, develop and grow these sleeper cells, and now they're concerned that these will be initiated, activated here very soon, as you heard from the video footage. One more time, and I'm seeing yeses pouring in. And keep in mind, don't forget, this is just the ones that they know of. There could be more and others they're just not aware of at this time. Washington, D.C., all throughout the entire state of New York, San Francisco, California, Santa Clara, California, Los Angeles, California, San Diego, California, Houston, Texas, Arlington, Texas, Dallas, Texas, Boca Raton, Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Orlando, Florida, Tampa, Florida, Boston, Massachusetts, Playfield, Illinois, Chicago, Illinois, Cleveland, Ohio, Laurel, Maryland, Potomac, Maryland, Harridan, Virginia, Springfield, Virginia, Raleigh, North Carolina, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Charlotte, North Carolina, Detroit, Michigan, Columbia, Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri, Denver, Colorado, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, Tucson, Arizona, and Seattle, Washington. These are the ones that we are hearing the warnings on, and I see those yeses still pouring in with people saying, yes, you just named my city, you are on the lookout, and they are hearing the warnings coming out today, June 20th, 2025, that the White House is monitoring possible attacks coming from sleeper cells. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the articles so that way you can see it for yourself, get you more information as to what is coming out here. White House is monitoring possible Iranian sleeper cells in the U.S., sources say. Now, you can see this coming out June 20th, 2025. Now, it says, as the Iranian supreme leader threatens irreparable harm to the United States, irreparable harm if the United States joins Israel's fight, the White House is warning of so-called Iranian sleeper cells. The Trump and the Biden administration have long been concerned about Iran's ability to direct or inspire attacks inside of the United States. Sleeper cells are spies or terrorists who operate in the U.S. and Western countries and remain inactive until they are essentially ordered to act. Experts who have spoken with News Nation said, should the U.S. join Israel's strike against Iran, they may try to activate these sleeper cells. A recent U.S. Department of Homeland Security threat assessment concurs, saying that the intelligence community expects Iran to remain the primary sponsor of terrorism and continue its efforts to advance plots against individuals, including current and former U.S. officials. That assessment echoed similar guidance from Biden's Department of Homeland Security back in 2024. Experts say, given the recent escalation between Israel and Iran, the possibility right now is very real. As the conflict in the Middle East escalates and Iran is being targeted, the regime thinks to itself, okay, we are on our last throws, and therefore we will go out with a bang, quite literally, said Barak Senior, a senior fellow at the Henry Jackson Society. Its calculus will be very different if its survivability is threatened. Intelligence services in the United States are working overtime to contend and to mitigate risks and threats that can emerge on its domestic soil. The more protracted that this conflict goes on, the heightened risk of both U.S. forces and assets in the Middle East, but also to U.S. security domestically. During last year's presidential campaign, federal prosecutors charged an operative of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps to 2 U.S.-based individuals who were allegedly planning to survey and assassinate President Donald Trump. That operative reportedly told investigators Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps officials encouraged him to plan the attack. In February, Trump's national security memo claimed that Iran has directed its proxy groups, including Hezbollah and the Islamic Jihad, to embed sleeper cells in the United States to be activated in support of potential terror activity. Now, if Israel's able to decapitate the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps command and control, who actually then controls the sleeper cells, anymore, do they become more decentralized, more autonomized? Do they become more like lone wolf actors who pays them because the regime is in its last race? So these are all the questions. And for the intelligence and security forces, it becomes a lot more challenging to monitor and identify who are going to be imminent threats when they are more decentralized and autonomized and functioning like lone wolf actors. So they're saying if the U.S. were to decapitate Iran's leadership, totally end the regime, and they have these sleeper cells inside of the United States, well then what happens to those sleeper cells? Who funds them? Who gives them orders? Do they still initiate as lone wolf actors? Well, they're saying they think that before the regime falls, they're likely going to give the order for them to attack. So they're saying that right now the United States is on heightened alert because we could be looking at the end of the current regime in Iran. United States Central Command officials tell News Nation it is likely that the FBI is currently monitoring potential threats right now. Mike Nelson, a retired Special Forces lieutenant colonel with the extensive experience at CENTCOM, tells News Nation that Hezbollah has had sleeper cells in the Western Hemisphere for some time, including coming through Venezuela. Iranians and Hezbollah used these cells in the past, including with Jewish communities, bombings in Buenos Aires in 1994, according to Nelson. It seems like Hezbollah and Iran would try to activate sleeper cells in the United States as retaliation if the U.S. joins in these strikes. So it would be prudent for the FBI to monitor, Nelson explained. The Iranian regime wants this to end with them in power, and their primary concern is survival, said Nelson. They do not want the United States to be involved. They most likely will not do anything to provoke the United States if they think that we are going to get involved. Then, one of their options is to attempt asymmetric attacks on the United States. In other words, activating statewide sleeper cells. Wow. So there you have it, you guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Are you concerned of this right now? We're hearing that this potentially could be unfolding. They're concerned about sleeper cell attacks, the involvement of Iran and China. The warnings are coming out. And in addition to that, as I mentioned, we're also hearing today warnings of World War III, and they're concerned of our enemies coming together and things escalating. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But let's go ahead and go back to Gordon Chang with Fox Business, and I'm going to share with you the entire clip so you can hear what he had to say about the warnings of sleeper cells, the warnings of China, and how they're buying up land and they are potentially allowing this. We're also hearing there are mystery flights at this moment going from China to Iran. The United States is very concerned because right now, what are they sending over? What is China doing? Is China and Iran unifying in some way? We just don't know. We don't have the answers. If you think that they are, and this is a concern, put yes. If you think no, put no. Let me know your thoughts. Let's take a look at these mysterious flights right now that are taking place, and we're going to be taking a look at the video footage here in a second of Gordon Chang. Let's go ahead and take a look.
There are new concerns over mystery flights that have taken off from China headed for Iran, and it's raising questions on how China may be helping Tehran in the effort against Israel. Good person to have here on this issue. China expert Michael Pillsbury joins us this morning. Michael, what's your sense about this? What do you think's going on?
Ashley, good morning. There's been a string of reports over the last 2 or 3 years that China is up to something nefarious and evil. The problem is the reports all have always turned out to be false. There was a report, remember the laboratory that was discovered in California? There were 700 white mice, and supposedly they were going to inflict the Ebola virus on the Western United States, and the Chinese general supposedly had said, we want to occupy the Western United States. Then there was the military-age men coming across the border, 10,000, 20,000, having target practice. They were going to form kind of a shadow army inside the U.S. and do some terrible thing. Each time that these events are forecast, they prove not to be true. It's a quite natural thing. And my own forecast is President Trump will be calling Xi Jinping to talk about the Iran thing. But the important thing is China is not backing Iran. They've abandoned Iran. They've said some very kind of vanilla type comments that they wish there were peace in the region. But this is their ally from whom they buy most of their oil. And they can't get together and say, leave Iran alone, or, take some kind of anti-Israeli stance. To me, this is really quite stunning that without saying so, China is backing what President Trump is doing and even offering to help. There's a statement, I'm sure you've seen it, by the Chinese ambassador here in Washington, which sounds like an offer to mediate. Yeah. So I very much doubt that there are nuclear weapons on these 3 747s. It's going to be another example of where commentators make irresponsible claims, and they need to be held to account afterwards. If there's no nuclear weapons on the planes, if they're just going to evacuate their embassy, somebody needs to apologize for these really wild. Frankly, actually, they're designed to make President Trump look soft. These people making these forecasts or these scenarios, they always have a theme that Trump is not soft, is too soft on China. I think they undermine what President Trump's trying to do, which is have a legacy of peace and prosperity. He's been really clear.
And very quickly, Michael, I'm sorry we're running out of time, but there's a lot of news, as you know. China has been trying to expand its influence in the Middle East. Have they been successful at all in that regard?
No, they are really trying to make money with huge investments, and the Arab world in general is turning them down. I think that was the reason for Trump's visit to the Middle East countries, is to make sure they don't go with China. If the price is right, they will go with China. But I think President Trump succeeded in a lot of these deals that we're also afraid of the Chinese getting control of the economies of the Middle East. That's not happening either. Yeah. So one more Trump phone call to Xi Jinping, we may see some real progress, Ashley.
Thing, if we get involved, Maria, what I'm worried about is Iran's operatives in the U.S. will strike. Remember, September 11, 2023, President Biden has that deal with Iran. He gives clemency to 5 Iranian operatives, and he lets 3 of them remain in the U.S. at a time when we knew that Iran was trying to kill former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and one other senior State Department official. That was just, I can't, it's indescribable what President Biden tried to do. And these operatives, they can strike us, our infrastructure, all sorts of things. We now learned afterwards that they're trying to kill President Trump. So we have to be worried about the homeland, because if the Iranian operatives strike, maybe the Chinese will go in with them, and China can do a lot of damage, not only to our civilian infrastructure, but to our military bases as well.
So you think we need to understand and remember that you've got Iranian operatives in the United States right now?
Yes, along with Chinese operatives and probably Russian ones as well.
Well, I mean, thanks to the wide open border, you've had 150,000 Chinese nationals come into the country.
Yeah, and I think Borders Our Homeland should concentrate all of his resources on breaking up those Iranian and those Chinese networks. They can let others go for the meantime, but we need critically, this is the most urgent task of the federal government, is to break up these Chinese and Iranian operatives in the U.S. because their networks are extremely dangerous.
That is huge. I mean, look, Israel was so genius in the way that they did this by getting Mossad to get weapons into Iran so that they could strike from within Iran into their own country.
Hi, I'm Nicole Hockley from Sandy Hook Promise. The shooter who murdered my son at
think about this.
That's what you're saying here, but in the opposite.
Yeah, Israel had, the drones that they had snuck into Iran.
Right.
And Ukraine snuck drones into Russia. But the Chinese don't have to do that, because there's like 1 million Chinese drones in our country already that are registered with the FAA, and God knows how many that are not. So clearly the Chinese can do substantial damage to our country if Xi Jinping gives the get-go.
It's a great point, and I have been railing on that for years now, the fact that the U.S. military buys drones from DJI, a Chinese drone maker, which is absolutely outrageous. Now, Senators Pete Ricketts and John Fetterman are leading a bipartisan charge to codify oversight on foreign countries buying up American farmland. So there's that angle as well. I mean, look, the Chinese have come in, bought farmland near military installations. There are certain governors, like Sarah Sanders, among others, in Arkansas, who says, you're not going to buy any farmland in my state. But it's been state by state as opposed to a federal rule against it.
Yeah, and remember, we've had those 3 Chinese nationals who have been charged with smuggling in biological agents into our country. Those were probably genetically modified biological agents, and that means if Chinese-owned farmland, those agents can take those germs, those fungus and whatever, and actually start a blight in the United States. We know that that blight that the nationals brought in, Chinese nationals brought in, they can go after wheat, corn, barley, maize. It causes problems in humans and livestock. This is an attack on American farms and American ranches. This is a weapon of mass destruction, and we shouldn't allow the Chinese to own land in our country because we can't own land in their country, Maria.
Right. Why would we do that? Well, I mean, look, this is also partly President Trump's genius. He doesn't want China and the Communist Party to really know how he's thinking about things, and that's good in many ways. You know, when you consider the fact that, yeah, they've come in, they've brought this pathogen, and we're still negotiating a trade deal. I don't know how we negotiate a trade deal with such a bad actor, and yet President Trump doesn't want to poke the bear too much to actually trigger World War III.
Yes, and to trigger those Chinese agents in our country as well, because we're not prepared right now. So, yeah, I can understand that he's sort of letting it go a little bit, but I really liked Ambassador Perdue's comments because he was very explicit about America starting to get a resilient supply chain. You know, in the Biden administration, you had Janet Yellen talk about friendshoring, and she was very polite about it. I'm glad that Ambassador Perdue is specific.
Oh, God, for God's sakes, they fed her mushrooms.
Oh.
There you have it, you guys. Now, you heard them talking about the warnings of World War III, as a lot of people are concerned about how this could really explode here if we see this unfold. As we are hearing the warnings coming out, take a look. In the last 24 hours, the Trump administration boosts monitoring of possible Iran-backed cells in the United States as Trump weighs strikes, according to sources. And Vladimir Putin says that he is worried when he is asked if there's concerns about World War III taking place. Now, let's take a look at this. This coming out just in the past 4 hours. Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Friday today that he was worried when asked if he was concerned about the world heading towards World War III. Now, let me know, are you concerned right now? If so, drop yes. If no, put no. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And I see super chats coming in. Thank you so much, Star-Lord, for the $5 super chat. I appreciate that a ton. Putin, speaking at an economic forum in St. Petersburg, said there was a lot of potential for conflict in the world and that it was growing. He mentioned Russia's own war in Ukraine and the conflict between Israel and Iran, and said that he was concerned by what was happening around the nuclear facilities in Iran, where Russia's specialists are building 2 new nuclear reactors for Tehran. It is disturbing. I am speaking without irony, without any jokes. Of course, there is a lot of conflict potential. It is growing, and it is right under our noses, and it affects us directly, said Putin. And this requires, of course, not only our careful attention to the events taking place, but also the search for solutions. The search for solutions, preferably by peaceful means, in all directions, Vladimir Putin said. Wow. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And let's take a look at some video footage coming out just in the past hour as they're discussing this, as Putin is coming out and warning today, June 20th, 2025, of World War III.
A short time ago, Russian President Vladimir Putin was asked if he is worried that the world could be heading toward World War III in this situation. Here's what he said.
It is disturbing. I am speaking without any irony, without any jokes. Of course, there is a lot of conflict potential. It is growing, and it is right under our noses, and it affects us directly. And this requires, of course, not only our careful attention to the events taking place, but also the search for solutions. The search for solutions, preferably by peaceful means.
All right, very interesting. Let's bring in Fox News senior correspondent Benjamin Hall, host of American Exceptionalism, available on Fox Nation. Ben, always good to have you with us. You know, this statement by Putin builds upon a statement by his spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, who said, you know, don't even think about killing Khamenei, that would be opening Pandora's box, and that he believed there would be an outpouring of support for the Iranian regime. Your thoughts on where this stands, and Russia's bold talk, but not a lot of action on behalf of Iran?
Yeah, Martha, it's fascinating. We hadn't heard as much as we expected to from Russia until the last few days. But look, Russia is looking at one of its closest allies right now. Iran is part of that coalition between Russia, Iran, North Korea, and if Iran were to fall, and everyone's looking not just at the nuclear deal, but perhaps if it were to fall, that takes a big ally away from Russia, and they will do everything they can to try and shore them up. On top of that, we know that China is also really interested in having Iran on the table, and now we're seeing China planes flying into Iran, perhaps to pull people out, but also a real awareness of the 1.3 million barrels of oil a day that go from Iran to China. So you suddenly have this coalition of countries that have supported Iran who are pushing back against it. And of course, when Dmitry Peskov earlier said that, if the Ayatollah was assassinated, then that would lead to severe consequences. They are thinking about Putin as well. They do not want to send a message that you can get rid of the leader of a country because you are at war with them, because, of course, that is Putin's own spokesman when he says that. So those countries looking really, really closely, and I think would do whatever they can to keep the Ayatollah in power.
Benjamin Hall, great coverage. Thank you very much. Good to see you.
There you have it, guys. Wow. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you agree with Vladimir Putin? Are we in a serious situation where we are about to enter into World War III right now? Let me know your thoughts. Now, one of the major concerns is that we have Russia and Ukraine, we have Iran and Israel and the United States right in the middle of these. And also, we're hearing that we have a 2-week window right now where the U.S., Donald Trump, he's trying to figure out where does the United States fall in all of this. And he has given the approval for U.S. strikes. We're positioning our troops, bunker busters, to destroy nuclear facilities of Iran. And Iran is saying they are threatening the United States. You don't want to do that. If you do, we will strike you back. And the concern is two things: strikes on U.S. military assets in the Middle East, and also sleeper cell attacks for groups that are already here in the United States that could attack people in their homeland here on U.S. soil. And these warnings coming out in the last 24 hours. Let's take a look at this article that just came out yesterday from CBS News that says the Trump administration, the White House right now, they are announcing this. They're boosting monitoring of possible Iranian-backed cells in the U.S. as Trump weighs strikes, sources say. And you heard the warnings from the video footage as they are saying, if the U.S. enters the war, there is concern that these sleeper cells will be activated. Now, it says, as President Trump is contemplating potential U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities, law enforcement officials have stepped up surveillance of Iran-backed operatives inside of the United States, multiple sources told CBS News. FBI Director Kash Patel has increased his efforts to monitor possible domestic sleeper cells linked to Hezbollah, a U.S.-designated foreign terrorist organization backed by Iran, since Israel's Operation Rising Lion offensive began earlier this month, U.S. officials said. Both the White House and the FBI at this time have declined for comments. Now, the threat from Iranian operatives has worried current and former administration officials since the Iranian general Qasem Soleimani was assassinated on Trump's orders back in January of 2020. Now, late last year, federal prosecutors charged an operative of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and 2 U.S.-based people with plotting to survey and assassinate critics of the Iranian regime. The IRGC operative allegedly told investigators that he was pushed by unnamed IRGC officials to plan an attack against Donald Trump. Now, for years, U.S. law enforcement and intelligence officials have been concerned about Iran's ability to direct and inspire attacks inside of the United States, a concern that has ramped up since Soleimani's assassination. The FBI, Department of Homeland Security, and others have devoted significant resources to countering this threat. There are a range of potential targets. In recent years, prosecutors have charged people with plotting to assassinate Mr. Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, and Iranian-American journalist Masih Alijad, both of whom are frequent critics of Iran's government. Bolton was granted Secret Service protection in 2021, but Mr. Trump revoked his protection this year. Mr. Trump is considering whether to strike Iran's uranium enrichment facilities at Fordow, joining Israel's week-long campaign against Iranian nuclear and military targets, CBS News has previously reported. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt said on yesterday that the president, he will make a decision within the next 2 weeks, citing a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran. Iran has threatened to retaliate if the U.S. decides to strike. Wow. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Is the United States going to be going to war here in the next 2 weeks with Iran? If you think so, put a 3. If you think no, put a 4. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And in addition to that, if you haven't done so yet, please take a second, hit that thumbs up like button. Helps spread this out further across the YouTube platform. And regardless of whatever unfolds, I'll be sure to share it here on the channel so that way you know exactly what is going on. And to stay up to date, it's totally free. Why not? Hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell. I'll be sure to cite all the sources, put it on the screen, read right from it so you can see it for yourself and know what is the latest. And also, if you want help with investing, thank you to today's video sponsor, my partners over at Lear Capital. Give them a call. Totally free advice. You'll be able to speak to a real person, help you out. If you're interested in investing in precious metals, gold and silver, may not be a bad idea while war is taking place right now. So that is the latest, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll catch you in the next one. Keep you up to speed on everything. Take care. God bless. This is